Hello and welcome to Citybeat inside Palo Alto. I'm P.A. Moore. It's March and it's springtime, and that means we're going to find out about keeping those storm drains clear in case it rains again. We're also going to learn about Arbor Month and all of the many activities that are going on. And in case you haven't met Richard James, our new Director of Community Services, he'll be stopping by on the show as well. And as usual, we'll have Trash Busters, the History Corner, and lots more. Do stay with us. Here I am with John Ballard, who's a supervisor in Public Works. John and his crew have an enormous task. They maintain 107 miles of storm drains. John, let's start with something really basic. What is a storm drain?
Storm drains are and is a catch basin. It's in the curb line that the water flows into, the rainwater flows into. It conveys all the storm water into the bay.
And so the more streets we have, the more concrete that we have, the more we need storm drains to carry away the water. Is that how it works?
That's exactly how it works. The more asphalt, the more parking lots, the more buildings, the more roof drains, everything goes in the storm drain.
Now, there is a distinction between storm drains and sanitary sewers. Even though they're both underground, they're quite separate.
Absolutely correct. Storm drains and sanitary sewers are two separate systems. They don't interconnect. The water that goes into the storm drain is not treated before it goes to the creeks and to the bay, where sanitary sewer is treated at the treatment plant before it goes into the bay.
And what is the process for you and your crew, which is this enormous task where you have to go through the city and clean out a storm drain? How is that done?
Well, it's done, we can do it by hand, physically with a shovel, pick up the grate and literally remove the debris from the catch basin. Or we do it with a mechanical truck, the vacuum truck that's behind us, depending on how far away the debris is from the catch basin. Sometimes when the catch basin is blocked, the debris pile is way downstream, could be 150 or 300 feet away. So that's when we use the truck to go in and hydro flush or root saw to get the material open, to get the pipeline open so the water will flow.
And fall is a really important time for cleaning out storm drains, I understand, because of all the detritus from the summer.
Fall is the most convenient time for us, basically. We do annual cleaning. We do everything year-round. We don't stop doing any maintenance. Like painting the Golden Gate Bridge, as soon as you get done with one end, you go back and start all over again. So we start in the fall because that's when the heaviest leaf fall is, right? The leaf season starts, and unfortunately it coincides with the rain. So when we get our first rains, when we get the first leaf fall, the heaviest leaf fall occurs at the same time. So we want to make sure all of our catch basins are as clean as they can be right from the beginning.
Okay, let's see how this whole system works, shall we?
Okay, let's do it.
John, that looked like a pretty efficient operation. What's the size of your crew?
The storm drain crew are the two people that you saw cleaning those catch basins in the field.
Well, you must have backups when somebody gets sick.
We do. We have other people that are qualified to operate the VACON truck, licensed to drive that truck. And we have staff and operations that fill in during a storm event when we're getting hundreds of phone calls from residents.
Now tell me, what advice would you give to residents about keeping the storm drain clean? Because I saw a lot of leaves in there and a plastic soda bottle. What do we need to make residents aware of?
Well, I think the most important thing is ask residents not to rake their leaves into the street. Have their landscapers pick up the material and recycle their leaves. And if they see bottles in the flow line or any debris, to pick it up. Don't block raccoons from coming out. That's the first thing we respond to in the rain usually, is people that put covers over the hoods for raccoon. So those are the things we like residents to be aware of. Don't let the things in the street go into the catch basin.
And where would a person telephone when their storm drain starts backing up?
During normal work days and business hours, 496-6974. After hours, 329-2413. Sorry about that.
Not a problem. Thank you so much for being with us today, John, and explaining this wonderful process. We really need to know.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure.
I'm with Shauna Wilson, and we're going to talk about the Palo Alto mediation program. Shauna, for our viewers, just give us a brief overview. What is the mediation program?
Well, the mediation program was set up by the Human Relations Commission here in the city of Palo Alto a number of years ago because they started getting calls in the middle of the night from various neighbors and landlords and tenants that were having various disputes, and so they decided, rather than have all these people continue to come to the city council or to the Human Relations Commission, there must be some way of being able to set up a program to, if nothing else, help people resolve their disputes amicably, so it didn't have to go to small claims court or didn't end up having to go to Superior Court. So that's what it initially got set up for. And the mediation program serves anyone who lives in Palo Alto, works in Palo Alto, or owns property in Palo Alto, and it's free.
Well, it sounds like there must have been some fairly serious issues between landlords and their tenants. You know, what are some of the things that you discuss in mediation?
Well, in addition to doing the mediations with landlord-tenant mediations, we also offer referrals and information to give a little more information about what landlord-tenant law is. And the neighbor-to-neighbor disputes are also ones that we get a lot of referrals from the police department, because a lot of people, they get upset at their neighbor and they call the police, but it's not like there's been any criminal activity. It's just something where there's a disagreement about where the fence should be, or how high the fence should be, or how the tree should be trimmed, or
well, how about these two 20-year-old boys who live next door to me and they party all night long? Would that be something for...
That would be a good thing for mediation. A very good thing for mediation.
So tell me, what's the process that I would go through if I were a resident of Palo Alto and wanted to take something to mediation? You know, if things hadn't worked out with my neighbor or with my landlord.
Well, you could call us here we're right on Sherman Avenue, and we're local. You can call us at 856-4062, area code 650, or email pamediation@aol.com. You'll get me. And then you can just tell me about what it is that you see as the problem or the dispute, and I'll listen to you and hear whether it sounds like it's something we can work with or not. And most of the things we can work with. I'll admit we get calls every once in a while asking us if we can do divorce mediation, and sorry, you're going to have to pay $250 an hour somewhere. And we don't do anything that's criminal activity. But in your case with your neighbors, then you would call us up and I go, geez, so tell me a little bit more, and then I'd need your contact information, and I'd need the contact information of your neighbor. And then I'd send out a letter saying, thank you so much for contacting the mediation program, and this give you a little more information about it. I'd also send a letter to your neighbor saying that you had contacted us and that you're inviting them to come into a free and voluntary mediation to work on the dispute. It's a very cordial letter. And then go into more information about how, as a mediator will be assigned to your case, and they won't act as an advocate for either you or your neighbor. Their whole premise is to be
fairly neutral.
Exactly. To be neutral, impartial, to offer a safe place and a place for people to be heard. Because often what we're finding is, yes, there's the underlying thing that's upsetting, but there's also this place where there's been a communication breakdown, and people get into their positions, and somehow just having someone they can talk to and be heard and have a place where they're going to be able to present their side of the story without interruption or with dignity and respect can sometimes be enough to be able to move it forward into a place where the actual disputants reach a settlement. So another thing, people think that, well, if I can just convince this mediator I'm right, then they'll make my neighbor do what I want them to do. And that's, again,
Right.
You know, we aren't the ones who make that decision. One of the beauties of mediation is that the people who have the problem come up with the resolution for it.
Yeah, but now I understand that while this is voluntary, there's still something called a mandatory response, and that's for landlords.
That is only for landlord-tenant issues, and that's if a landlord has 2 or more properties in Palo Alto that they have for rent. In other words, it wouldn't be if a landlord owns a house and 2 homes in Palo Alto and they live in one and they rent the other one. That wouldn't be applicable. If they have 2 or more rentals in Palo Alto, then they can fall under the purview of the mandatory response program. And we have landlords that open the cases and tenants that open the cases.
Okay.
And it's under specific guidelines too. In other words, you can't call us for a mandatory response if there's an eviction notice. It's around, most of those ones are disputes about deposit, security deposit, or maintenance, repairs, things along those lines. And then you actually have to write out a petition for it, and there's really strict guidelines. And then the landlord and the tenant would need to come in to hear opening remarks, and then they're free to go if they don't want to stay for the mandatory response program. We've never had anybody do that, though.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, how about give us that phone number one more time where people can get more information?
650-856-4062.
Super. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. It's a pleasure.
Richard James is the new Director of Community Services, and we're here to chat about some new directions for that department. Richard, let's start off with how did you get involved with community services? This has been a long career track for you.
Well, it has been, and probably a pretty strange one, in that I began actually as a scenic and lighting designer in the theatrical world, and that's how I started with the city of Palo Alto, managing this theater that's right next to us. And that was some 25 years ago. So since that time, I've had the opportunity to do many things in community services, including things like running special events, running community centers, and a variety of things with our library, human services, etc. So I have really played a role in almost every single area of the department over the years.
Now, would you say that that sort of background and career track is really important to being Director of Community Services? How does it all fit in?
Well, it fits in by getting to know what people's needs are, number one, and then getting to realize what staff talent is, number two, and how to match those things together. And the only way to do that is over time, over experience. So the more experience you have doing that, the easier it is to run a department.
Well, now that must be quite a joke there, when easy to run a department, because, you know, as director, your life is going to change. There's authority and responsibility now.
My life has changed a great deal, as a matter of fact. Today's a good example. I was up early this morning at 7 o'clock this morning. It'll probably end around 10:30 tonight because there's a commission meeting I have to attend. We have 3 different commissions in the department, and so we're always very active dealing with community issues. Another way it has really changed my life is before I didn't have actually as much contact with the community as I do now. Now I have virtually every single day meetings with some community element or another who need something from community services, and that's our job, is to supply what our community needs.
So you really need to be responsive to people. So tell me, I know there have been a lot of changes, and with the economic downturn plus the change in libraries, what do you see are some new directions for the community services? There must be quite a few.
Yeah, there's going to have to be. I mean, we're going to have to actually reset, quote, reset, as you reset a computer, reset the department. We're going to lose library as a division, which will make us different. We're going to lose a number of people through retirements for the next year or so. We've already lost some people through retirements. And because of all that, we are going to go through a bit of a reorganization. And in that reorganization, the community won't feel a thing. It'll seem like the same old community services, but we'll be more adept at providing services. And the way we're going to get there is through a new strategic planning And I don't want to even call it an exercise. It's a process that's going to take us a good 9 months to a year. We're going to begin it in March, and we're going to do a full informational outreach to the public. We're going to gather input through focus groups, through interviews with our leadership, the community leadership, as well as staff leadership, interviews with city council members, commissions, friends groups. We're going to gather all the information we possibly can, including information from the people who do not use our services. And I think that's the most important thing we're going to try to do. And using that information, we are going to come up with a new focus for community services, a new mission, a new vision, something all of our employees can grab a hold of and be proud of. And it's given the economics of the day, that's sometimes difficult to do because people feel threatened. I think this process will help not only our employees get through these issues, but help our residents see that we're here to provide the services they want. And to tell you the truth, what they're going to tell us is the services they don't want. And that's going to help balance out that resource issue that we now face.
So it sounds like quite an exhaustive process and involving everyone. So basically the message to residents is what?
Right now, hold on. We're going to kick this thing off at the end of March, and you'll be hearing from us through all sorts of different means.
Okay. Thank you so much, Richard, and great to hear about the new community services.
Well, thank you.
I'm with Jana Dilley, and we're here to talk about Canopy, a marvelous nonprofit organization. Jana, tell us and remind our viewers just what is Canopy?
Canopy is an organization that works with the city of Palo Alto to take care of the trees in our cities. We do a lot of tree plantings, and we also work to educate the people in the city about why our trees are so important.
And they certainly are important. And March is a special month for you when it comes to doing a lot of activities. Tell me about it.
March is Arbor Month.
Great.
Arbor Month in the state of California is celebrated from March 7th to March 14th, but Canopy has extended that celebration to the entire month.
Well, then you must have some activities. Tell us what's going to be happening during the month.
We do. Our biggest activity is Cass Turnbull, who is an author and founder of Plant Amnesty, is coming on March 6th and March 7th. She's going to be giving a tree talk on the 6th, and on the 7th she's leading a pruning demonstration workshop. We also have 3 tree walks throughout the month, and we have the dedication of the Challenger trees in Pier Park, which they're seedlings of El Palo Alto that were flown around in the Space Shuttle Challenger and are now planted in Piers Park. So we'll be dedicating a plaque to them. And then we also have a new Tree City USA, because City of Palo Alto is a tree city recognized by the National Arbor Day Foundation. And so we have a new sign that we're going to be putting up on the gateway to Palo Alto on University Avenue.
Well, we'll go take a look at that sign, but I wanted to come back to the Cass Turnbull talk. Plant Amnesty. Now, what does that conjure up? Plants get amnesty?
Plant Amnesty is an organization dedicated to teaching people proper pruning techniques so that plants aren't butchered in some ways that they can be if you don't know what you're doing.
How could residents get more information about all these wonderful activities and maybe even volunteer to join Canopy?
You can check our website and all the information is there. You can also call Canopy at 650-964-6110.
Oh, thanks so much, Jana.
Thank you.
And to continue our discussion about Arbor Month, I'm with Dave Doctor, the city's arborist. Dave, I understand the city once again has another award, and we've got a great sign. Why don't you show us?
Okay, this is a very, very fun thing, PA, for the city of Palo Alto to be, again, recertified as a Tree City USA. This sign is very special because we're going to be putting this at all the gateways to our fair city. This is a representation that we have a unique tree program in the nation, and the National Arbor Day Foundation has awarded us this sign, again, as a growth reward.
Wow. Well, that's fabulous. Yeah. Now, let's talk about some of the other aspects of trees. I know that the trees are aesthetic, they're beautiful, they help in keeping the air clean, but I understand there have been some studies from the University of Illinois recently. Tell us about those.
Yes, these studies from the university, which, by the way, we're going to have on our website.
Oh, great.
We're going to put a link there to provide all our residents to that. But there's the studies of why our city is so beautiful and fair as far as the urban forest is they've now documented the fact that crime is reduced when an urban forest is healthy. Emotional stability of a city is greater. And cities actually tend to grow when there's a healthy urban forest. It's very, very key statistics that have been developed here.
Well, isn't that great to think that we could reduce crime by planting a tree? And I understand that the city is going to be having some special events coming up with Arbor Month. So you want to tell us about those?
Yes, Arbor Month, as you know, California Arbor Day is in March, which is Arbor Month, and on the 25th, we're actually going to be putting this sign up on University Avenue. So that's a very fun thing that we'll let the folks know exactly where it will be, but it'll be one of the gateways. So we'll be doing some tree walks starting at City Hall Plaza on the 25th, and we'll take a walk around the south of Forest area and look at some of the nicer and finer trees of our area here.
Oh, that sounds like a fun event. And I guess people can find more information on the Canopy website. Is that right?
Yeah, as far as all the actual events through the whole month, we will be presenting Mayor Beecham with an award, a resolution honoring California Arbor Day. And we'll keep tuned on our website because we do want to provide some good links, good information to make the kids and the adults and residents of Palo Alto more aware of how important trees are to us.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Dave.
Sure.
I'm with Gary Fazzino, and we're going to be talking more about Palo Alto history. Gary is a former mayor and council member, and he has seen it firsthand. Gary, let's talk about that period in the 1970s when there was really a lot of social change going on. Tell us about it.
Well, as you know, PA, the residentialists had struggled for 20 years to gain control of the city council. They did so in 1971. They were known primarily for their slow growth, pro-environmental platform, but they're not recognized often for the way in which they changed the role and nature of city government, particularly in the area of social services. Until the 1970s, Palo Alto provided fundamental city services, police, fire, planning, utilities. But it wasn't until 1972-73 that the city recognized that it had a legitimate role to play in the area of social services. And within 4 years' time, the city was providing a leadership role on services such as childcare, drug abuse, affordable housing, and other related social services.
Now, is it possible that that was triggered in some way by the drug issues and the gangs at the time?
Absolutely. There was a real drug issue in local schools, local high schools in the late 60s, early 70s. Lots of publicity about the tragic deaths of several high school students. And this really was the impetus for the development of the city-sponsored drug program in 1972. At the same time, a group of Palo Alto mothers got together, recognized that there was a tremendous need for childcare, particularly since women were moving into the workplace for the first time. And as a result of their efforts, the city agreed to fund a child care program at that time. Another area of great leadership for the city at the time was the development of senior services, and largely as a result of a contribution by Dave Packard and Bill Hewlett. The old police station in downtown Palo Alto was preserved and became the senior center. And as a result of that, the city worked with local residents to put in place a formal senior services program.
Well, now, Gary, all of these things demonstrate the fact that Palo Alto is certainly a very visionary in its in thinking and forward thinking. But, you know, where do you see that taking us now, 2004 and beyond?
Well, unfortunately, Palo Alto does not have the financial resources that it had 30 years ago. In addition, the state has taken away many powers. It is far more difficult for a city like Palo Alto to be a leader in the area of social services. As you know now, we are doing what we can to address the very real issue of homelessness, working very closely with groups like Peninsula Interfaith Council to develop the Opportunity Center. But its success is going to depend primarily upon private dollars as opposed to city dollars. At the same time, I think the city recognizes it is in a far better position than the state or the federal government to determine what the needs of its local residents are. And this city was one of the first to recognize that residents have social needs as well as physical infrastructure needs.
Right. Well, Gary, thank you so much. Obviously, that private-public partnership is going to be a big part of the future. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Wheeled carts or stacking crates? What does the future hold for the Palo Alto recycling program? Well, City Council will get to decide that this month. The Public Works Department will be going to the Council's Policies and Procedures Subcommittee and recommending that we go full-scale or citywide with the pilot single-stream recycling program. The single-stream recycling pilot program has been going on for a little bit over a year. About 2,500 households have been participating in 5 different neighborhoods within Palo Alto. We've done some testing with the pilot, learned a lot of things. Probably the best thing we've learned is that it scores a 10 out of 10 with customer or resident satisfaction. People love the ease and convenience of single-stream recycling. There are some costs associated with single-stream recycling, however. Processing, for instance, is a lot more intricate because everything is mixed together. Whereas collection, on the other hand, has a lower cost because it's much easier to collect single-stream recycling. The truck only has to go through the neighborhood once. So it was a little tricky finalizing the cost, but we have done that, and those will go to council this month. So depending on the Policies and Procedures Subcommittee approval, then we'll go on to either another subcommittee or to council as a whole for approval. If you have any comments or questions, please call the recycling program at 496-5910. This is Wendy Hediger reminding you to reduce, reuse, recycle, and buy recycled.
Family Resources is your link to recycling. Paths for biking, trails for hiking, childcare, street repair, volleyball, city hall, dog runs for dog walkers, support groups for need-to-talkers. Softball leagues, soccer leagues, swimming pools, all sorts of schools. The Palo Alto Arts Center, assistance for the housing renter, recreation, information, public access cable station, ice skaters, mediators, senior care, food for you, children's theater, the petting zoo, volunteer opportunities in your community, hotlines, warm lines, bus lines, parks, libraries, Maybank, healthcare, and the arts, neighborhood and civic groups, tennis courts, basketball hoops, services for the disabled, where to find a picnic table, multicultural and ethnic festivities, foreign language, accessibility, the Junior Museum, the people next door, emergency services, all this and much, much more. It's all here right on our website. You can rock the house when you click that mouse. Be a paragon. Come on and log on now.
Thanks for watching Citybeat inside Palo Alto. I'm P.A. Moore. And remember, if you have any questions or comments about the show, be sure to send them to the email address listed at the end of the credits. See you next time.